Hey everybody, Jay Weidner, Reality Check. Hit like, subscribe, all that other stuff. Lots going on in the world today, and I'm here with our court astrologer, Robert Phoenix. He comes by about once every 3 months, and we talk about what's going on. And actually, if you watch our interviews in a row from the beginning till now, even this one, you can definitely see the ramp up going. You can see that there's everyone is more ramped up than the one that was before. And this one's going to be more ramped up than the last one. I'm pretty sure about that. And we're going to try and avoid the usual dangers of, getting us taken down or anything. I don't want anything like that to happen. But Robert, how you doing?
Jay, surprisingly well. Thanks for asking, and it's always great to be here with you. So
yeah, we're going to discuss some of the problems you've been having, and like I say, I hope I don't have to face those, but I probably am near that point now, especially the shows I've been doing lately. So let's talk about the world.
Let's talk about it.
We have our what does Cliff High call Uncle Joe? The pretendant. Yeah, the pretendant. I think that's what he calls him, the pretendant,
Right.
in charge. And we have the coming at us,
Right.
and we're being boxed in. It's kind of obvious, slowly but surely. And then we have the strange stuff going on with the U.S. Navy and the UFOs. I'm not usually do UFOs, except for the cult aspects of UFOs. I'm not really all that interested. I never have been. I don't know why. But I have been fascinated by like Richard Dolan's work on the national security state and UFOs, because I find that fascinating. But what I've been seeing here lately, I was not expecting it. It was completely out of left field. I don't know quite what to make of it. The Navy's being tracked. These UFOs are like 40 feet above the ship, going at the same nautical speed. They're in top secret missions, and they're not trying to capture the UFO. They're not trying to shoot down the UFO. They're tolerating it. But that's strange. But the strangest part is the Navy's telling the New York Post and the New York Times, and even today, the Washington Post had an article, which is, major outlet for certain agencies. And so there's a report coming in 2 months in June, I guess. And it's a Navy report to Congress about what this all is about. And my only assumption I can make about this thing is that the occupants, whoever they are, I don't know who they are telling the Navy that either you spill the beans or we spill the beans. This is it. And so I think that I don't know what those beans are. I mean, I don't know if this is Project, Blue Ray, coming in, and part of the Great Reset. Is it part? I think it is. The fact that the incident happened in late 2019. Think about where we were in November 2019, right? Was everything that happened in 2020 part of this thing, right? This, Terrence McKenna used to always tell me that the future was all going to happen at the same time. So everything's going to be running along. Then all of a sudden, we're going to hit an orthogonal wave, which is, you take a right angle to a thing that's orthogonal, and everything's going to be downloaded in that one orthogonal moment. And I always like, what the hell? I don't get this. And now I have to say that if what I think is happening, I think that this is what it is, that we're being prepped for some kind of complete turning of the key, a complete opening of a new door, a complete different world than we've ever known. And they're using all of these devices that have been happening and are going to continue to happen as a way to soften the landscape. What do you think?
Well, I mean, there's a lot there. if you're following the crypto world right now, it's going through an orthogonal moment.
Yes,
It's
it is.
going straight down.
Yes, it is.
That's just an
Like that.
observation. We might be able to talk about that a little bit when we get
Yeah.
into some of the astrology.
Yeah.
Well, I've been talking about how they're going to dive into disclosure for the better part of about, maybe 6 to 9 months now.
Yeah.
And that was not a hard one to figure out. Once Tucker Carlson started to do features on UFOs on his show, it's like, okay, well, where's this going? Where it's going is they're going to bring disclosure in. They're going to bring the alien stuff in. They're going to bring the alien tech in, quite possibly, or technology that's already been developed, but they'll kind of, give it the alien pass. It's like, oh, look what we get.
That's right. My insider I have an insider who's a friend of one of my good friends.
Mhm.
And he's German, Bund Intelligence. And he is saying to my friend, and this guy is way up there, that they have picked out the alien species that looks the most like us. And they're going to introduce this guy to us this year, 21. It's part of Agenda 21. And that he himself has met the alien. And he said, quote, "My brain was all right with it. My mind was just fine with it. But my gut was wrenching." He said, "I could not stop it from just being gut wrenched." He said, "The thing was so weird looking that I had a visceral reaction that I'm still not over." And he said, "Can you imagine what, Joe Public is going to have when they see this?" So that's what I've been hearing.
Yeah, so it brings in a whole other topic of discussion, which, I'm sure some people have had it, but it's not, I don't think it's been a broad conversation across the internet. And this idea that the Antichrist could actually be an extraterrestrial.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Yep.
could look human, but, in
Yep.
this instance, feel very, very different. And at this point, nothing would surprise me in the least. But I do think that we're headed down that path. And both you and I have had a more than passing interest in Jack Parsons. And Jack Parsons, of course, was in the military. He was in the Navy. He was naval intelligence, as was L. Ron Hubbard.
Yep.
And the two of them, of course, theoretically making contact with some kind of alien intelligence in their Babylon working. So here we go. We have the Navy being the vehicle through which this is being disseminated to the public.
Very important, because the Navy is really truly the elite of our military. And the elites themselves, when their sons go into a military, it's almost always the Navy. And the Navy was the first intelligence agency that our country had, ONI, to watch for pirating and things at the beginning of our country. And they've always resented the creation of other intel agencies because they regard themselves as the primary intel agency. And the Navy regards itself as the primary military agency. And let's not forget that NASA is run by the Navy, and my insiders tell me the secret space program is run by the Navy. So, and that might be changing and moving to the Space Force, just like the Air Force used to be part of the Army, and then they broke off. So it may be now that, they're breaking it off, which I think is actually what is happening. And yeah, so this is kind of the culmination of all this high weirdness that's been going on for, I guess, my whole life. But they're right now making their move. And the thing is, when a football team wins a Super Bowl, right?
Mm-hmm.
They don't go over and start punishing, Brady and the Buccaneers didn't go over and start punishing the Kansas City Chiefs and trashing them after the game and all of that, because winners are magnanimous, right? Right. And you won. I mean, you won the cookies. You won the match, right? Do the winners of the last election look like they won? Are they acting like they won? I mean, they don't. They are not acting magnanimous. They're punishing the loser, and in vicious ways and incredible ways, in ways that are actually jaw dropping. And furthermore, a lot of America supports this. I'm going to come out and just tell you, a lot of America supports the purge that's going on. Maybe even a majority, maybe 60, 70% even support the purge. So they really have bought. I've discovered in the last couple of months that most Americans have bought the idea that we are, in fact, a really bad place.
Mm-hmm.
I hate to say it, but they have.
Mm-hmm.
They bought the whole line and sinker, and they believe it. And there's like, and I will say another thing about these people. I've noticed that the people who really don't like this place are not very well-traveled people. It's always the second question I ask. So where have you gone in your life? And it's usually, oh, I've never left Texas, or I've never, been out of the United States, or I went to Canada one time, right? But you don't ever see well-traveled people trashing America because, we've been everywhere. We know what it's like. And, I love the world and it's great, but I kiss the ground every time I come back here. And I'm afraid we're losing it. I really am.
Yeah, I would agree. It's the outgrowth of a very long psychological operation where people are being demoralized and being basically turned into, prisoners of a Stockholm syndrome, and identifying with the brutality of their captors. And it's really, I'm going to come right out and say it without mincing words, and it's mostly quote unquote white people who are succumbing to this unfortunate programming. And it's almost like a kill switch. It's almost genocidal in some ways. And I think we're in a very precarious position and state. We can bring some astrology in here.
Yeah, let's do it.
So,
where are we?
Yeah, well, so we're going through. I'm going to talk about Chiron today, and Chiron is a very interesting astrological aspect in that it theoretically is between Saturn and Uranus, and there are these kind of massive, asteroid / prospective moons that get sucked into Saturn's orbit that come from the Kuiper belt. So they have all these very large objects there, and all those large objects have names, and they're all named after centaurs from Greek mythology. There are two that they discerned or found out in 1970, was it 1967? 1967, hold on a second, no, it was 1976, when there were two of these objects that had orbits, discernible orbits. And one they named Chiron, and the other they named Charlico, which was Chiron's wife. And Chiron is this centaur who is born from Kronos and Philyra, and Philyra being this nymph. And, long story short, rejected by his mother, symbol of shame, and ultimately becomes this almost Christ-like figure in the pantheon of these centaurs, and becomes a very central figure in terms of educating, the heroes of the Iliad and the Odyssey. Very, very interesting character. And then gives himself up to Prometheus because Prometheus is being eaten away every day, and so he can't stand it. So he sacrifices his immortality to take Prometheus off the rock. So Chiron is kind of a Christ-like figure in some regards. So right now, Chiron, which is also about vulnerability and healing, and then ultimately wounding and ultimately healing, is in the sign of Aries. And we go back 50 years ago to 1968. And that's when Chiron was in the sign of Aries. Like that was the last time Chiron it goes through 50-year cycles. So if you go back to 1968, it's one of the most tumultuous years in the 20th century. You've got the riots in Paris. You've got the Weather Underground. I mean, it is nuts.
Democratic Convention.
Yep, it is bloody. Bloody and nuts. It's also the rise of what they call second wave feminism.
Right.
And you can see that it's the wounded male. Right? We see that with Chiron, the wounded male. So here we go. We're coming back around again. And Chiron, we're getting close to that 50-year cycle. Well, we're already in the 50-year cycle. The United States natally has Chiron in Aries in the 4th house at the 20th degree of Aries. So what does that mean? Well, it means that, in the home, right? In the home, number one, that we would be dealing with things like violence, police, the army, even at times conflict inside the home with, abuse. I mean, these things are kind of planted in the U.S. chart, and I'm using a very specific chart with Sagittarius rising. So here we go. We're coming around to that 20th degree of Chiron, the Chiron return. We're not quite there yet, but it's getting very close. So what are we dealing with? We're dealing with guns. We're dealing with, whether it's real or not, wherever you are with this thing, there is a concerted effort to dismantle the police force. That's number one, right? They're very clear about that. They want it. It's not just about defunding. They want to take away the entire idea of policing. Simultaneously, they want to get the guns out of Americans' hands. So just think about that for one moment. You have the police force being, and what they want is to have it completely eradicated, and then they want to take the guns out of people's hands. What do you think is going to happen after that? This place is St. Petersburg, 1917. Okay, it is really bad. They in their minds, they want a complete purge, a complete political, socioeconomic purge of this country. And that's where we are right now. We're dealing with this Chiron kind of moment in time. And I was just looking at the chart for the UN. And what's really interesting is that the UN's chart is 20 degrees Aries. So the United States Chiron is right on the cusp of the UN's rising sign. So who do you think is driving this? It's the UN. The UN is driving not only, well, they're not driving the script. They're not driving the reality script around a lot of these events, right? Like we had this event in Chicago where this kid was killed, by the way, in the month of Aries, if I'm not mistaken. It was late March. And then a whole month later, they're bringing the video out. Well, why are they doing that? Well, we know why they're doing that. Because they're stoking the fires with this stuff. Yeah. And so that script is being generated internally, but the overall script in terms of dismantling the United States and the right to bear arms, that's coming from the UN as this organizing body. So yeah. we're in a very precarious phase. Now, Chiron won't hit that 20th degree until right around that degree until late 2020, late 2022, because it spends a lot of time going retrograde. So 2022 is a really big year. It's a very important year. You just take the 20 out and just look at the 22, and that is the number of the master builder. And all of this really began in 2020, where we have the number 22 isolated again. So I think they're really on a fast track to get this thing as dismantled as possible by the time we get to 2022 and the end of 2022. And that's everything. I mean everything. They're and you know this, they want to create, basically they want to deindustrialize everything, completely deindustrialize everything. That's right. And they don't want to have anybody to have any access to any tools, any equipment, anything that will allow them to build or be innovative. That's going to get taken out of your hands. And then what's going to happen is, and then maybe this is where the alien stuff comes into play, is that they bring in a whole new technology. A whole new technology that is completely controlled.
That's right. You got it. It's I can make a bunch of easy predictions. All open fires will be outlawed. Gardening will be outlawed because you're spreading disease. Animal husbandry is on its way out. I guarantee it. They're going to come to your farm or your ranch or even your place where you live, and you're going to have to give up your. First off, they're going to outlaw meat, so you're not going to be able to feed your dogs or cats unless you want to feed them cucumbers, and my cats are not going to like that very much. So that's the whole plant-based stuff that's going on. This is all coming out of technocratic think tanks that have decided they're going to manage everything that we do. And it's actually really easy to predict. Travel will be gone soon. Air travel will be prohibited. You're not going to be able to build a house, by the way. A 2x4 has gone from $4 to $12, an 8-foot 2x4 in 1 year. I had to put off an extension I was going to put in my house. The guy who was going to build the extension for me literally said, I can't give you an estimate. He said, every day, everything just changes.
That's right.
He said, maybe you could give me, the money now and I'll buy it today and then I'll be accurate. But you said, other than that, I don't know what to do. I said, just forget it. The world's gone too crazy. So, we're heading into this thing where they're moving us into the fourth aspect of the human being. The first aspect was the hunter-gatherer. The second aspect of the human condition was the agricultural city. The third was science technology, which started about 400 years ago. And now we're moving, and each one is shorter, just like the Yuga system. Yep. Hunter-gatherer was hundreds of thousands of years, and then the city agriculture was only 6,000 to 8,000 years, and then this one was only 400 years, and now this one's coming at us. And it's pretty obvious to me that they're going to be haves and have-nots, and the have-nots are useless and are to be gotten rid of. And who's actually been doing some good work, and I usually don't praise this guy, but I have to say I've been watching some of his videos lately. That kind of heavyset guy from Austin, AJ, I think his name is. He's been doing some very interesting videos lately.
Yeah.
He had my old partner Jay Dyer on, who was with me on Hollywood Decoded on Gaia, and Jay Dyer did a whole entire history, backtracking everything, every decision that was made all the way up until right now. And you can see that they were talking about it 10 years ago, and they're instigated or put it in 2020, and he showed every single piece and how it was working and where it was headed, and it was great work. And so there is some people that are reporting things, and it's getting out there, but it's getting more and more difficult. And now we know why it's getting more difficult. Now we know what all this was about. The taking down of people's stuff. We now know what it was. It was all a concerted plan. They had to get rid of this one, and they had to get rid of this one. And you can see each one they got rid of was talking about it the most. And now they're getting rid of the little guys who aren't really talking about it at all. So, and I hear you've had your own problems with certain networks too.
Yeah. I got banned from.
Got yanked.
Yeah, from the Y and the T.
Yeah.
And it's there's always a pattern. The pattern is, oh, you get a strike. Don't worry, just be careful. But if you get that second strike, we're going to have to give you a little timeout. Of course, they'll find something, in your catalog, either current or in the back catalog, and they'll give you the second strike.
Yeah.
Once you get the two strikes, you better think about where your future is.
I am. I put out a video that was up for about 15 minutes, and they struck it. And it was basically, it was called a filmmaker looks at the Zapruder film, right? And I all I did was VO'd it, right? I showed it. I let it run without any talking, right? Highest quality version I could find, right? And then I showed the next one. I showed the government's version. Then I showed it again. I showed the conspiracy theorist version, right? Then I showed it again with my version, which was the jaw dropper, which was it was all fake and it was all effects. It was a squib here on the side of his head. He places it. I'm going to just tell it right now. May never be able to tell it again. So if you watch the film, he goes behind the JFK goes behind the freeway sign. That's your first clue. There's a splice there. Why is there a splice there? Well, actually, let me start this over because this is really good. First question you got to ask is, it's 12:30 on a sunny afternoon in Dallas. The rock star president and his rock star wife are making an open car passing through your downtown. Where's all the people? Okay. Where's all the people? There's maybe 100 people there. Come on. Then there's the second question. This rock star president is visiting your town. You have an ABC outlet in your town, a CBS outlet in your town, and an NBC outlet in your town, but you never send anybody down there to film this. Okay. The only person that films it is a tailor named Zapruder with his 8mm camera. The only person that brings a motion picture camera is this guy. Okay. So Kennedy passes by the freeway sign and there's a splice. That's your first clue something's wrong. Okay. When he comes out, he's got his hands here. And the conspiracy theorists say, oh, he got shot in the front. The government says he got shot in the back and that he's grasping his neck, right? Well, I got news for you. When you get shot in the neck, every major artery is in this neck. Right. When you get shot in the neck, it shoots out.
Yeah,
it shoots out.
Sure,
Whatever direction it shoots out. It is absolutely, the pressure is astonishing. Anyone who's ever been in war and seen somebody get shot in the neck knows what I'm talking about.
Or there's even in other parts, of the body.
Yep.
The neck is an extreme version of it.
Yep.
But the amount of pressure with blood on skin is significant. And usually when people get shot, it is visceral.
It is.
And by the way, just real quick, I just want to throw this in here because this is important.
Yep.
When we look at some of these so-called shootings that are taking place right now, and I did this, I broke down the Dante Wright incident in Brooklyn Center in Minnesota. There is absolutely zero evidence around any of this based on what we're talking about. Zero. And I've watched that film again and again and again. Zero.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's something going on here. So, so there is no blood. He's holding his hand here, though. So there's definitely he's holding his hand here, but there's no blood anywhere. No blood anywhere. But if you actually watch the Zapruder film really closely, you'll notice that that's not what he's doing. He's reaching into his coat and he's pulling something out, and then he puts it right here. You can clearly see him do it. And then when he takes his hand out, you see there's something there. You can clearly see it. There's something there. And what that is it's a squib. It's a squib. It's a Hollywood device that they use to simulate a gunshot. And Jackie, who's not paying any attention to anything, right? Suddenly, as he gets us up here, she's now paying attention to him. And he's leaning over like this, and she reaches over and she puts her hand right here, and she pulls the string, because that's how you ignite the squib in those days. Nowadays you use a remote, but in those days you had to pull the string. There's a famous shot of a Gary Cooper in High Noon, and the guy has there's a technician flat on the ground with the string coming out of Gary Cooper's trousers, and he's going to pull it, so you simulate a gunshot wound on Gary Cooper. And then Kennedy just kind of goes down under the seat so you don't see him anymore. And Jackie leaps up and goes and grabs something from the trunk, the top of the trunk of the car, and pulls it, and then it's over, right? I believe that. Oh, you can also see the squib roll up. After the explosion, you can see the squib, which is a metal plate. So a squib is a metal plate with a slight amount of gunpowder and then a casing that looks flesh colored, right? And so you pull the squib, and a plate rolled up, and I think it flew off, and that she saw it fly off, and she had to grab it so no one would see it. So I don't know why he did it, but I'm absolutely convinced that there's something not right about the whole thing, and I'm absolutely 100% convinced. And I'm sure you've seen the picture of Lee Harvey going down the hallway with the microphone up in the ceiling. Have you seen that picture?
Yeah. So apparently they had to like shoot that scene twice, right?
Yeah,
That's what yeah, they had to shoot it twice.
yeah. So
Mhm.
the fakery, my point is the fakery's been around for a long time. And it appears to me that a lot of the fakery is designed just to be traumatic. It
Mhm.
just doesn't seem to be any other reason why, if Kennedy didn't want to run for president or the mob was threatening him, which is what I think was going on. I think, that he could have just resigned and moved someplace safe.
Mhm.
But no, that's not how they chose to exit. They chose to exit in the most traumatic way possible. Actually destroyed my mom's life. My mom was this huge Kennedy fan, and I don't think she ever got over that murder. So anyway, let's talk about the astrology. So Chiron is having this huge influence on things right now. What can we expect over the next 3 months?
Well, you can expect more of what you're seeing now. They're going to try to ramp this thing up as quickly as possible so that they can, move on defunding the police, creating a whole new paradigm with policing theoretically, and taking away the guns, taking away Americans' right to defend themselves. I think this is going to continue to accelerate. Now, here's a really interesting story that happened last week that nobody is talking about. And it's where a couple of different things come together. There's this guy, Philip Adams, who used to play for the San Francisco 49ers and a number of other NFL teams.
Oh, yeah.
He had about a 6-year career. He was decent. He wasn't great. He was decent. He went on a shooting spree in South Carolina and killed 6 people, right? Theoretically. I mean, so what's interesting about that is that they're trying to like pawn this off on CTE, which is the brain damage that players get from continued shocks and concussions,
Sure.
hits to the head. That's also Chiron and Aries, by the way, because you're dealing with the head and Aries and the damage that takes place. So you have both things converging. You have a guy who is using a gun, obviously, to kill a doctor and his family. And that doctor was treating him. But then you have the football thing come into play as well. But nobody's talking about that. Every time there is an incident that doesn't seem to fit the narrative of what's
Right.
going on, it just kind of goes away very
Yeah,
quickly.
that's what happened with the Boulder massacre.
That's right, the dude in Boulder,
They
right?
sat on the guy's name for 16 hours, causing all this strife in the country. I was trying to find his name. I knew people in the Boulder Police Department. They wouldn't tell me his name. I was like, what's going on here? They always release the name of the guy almost immediately as soon as they arrest him. They didn't release him. That turned out what didn't fit their scenario. So now it's gone. And I predicted on my Facebook page it would be gone. I said, this will be gone in like
Yep.
minutes.
Doesn't fit the narrative.
No.
But there's a really interesting, how would I describe this, kind of counter narrative that's going on right now with some of these things. So Lori Lightfoot, who is the mayor of Chicago.
Lori Lightweight.
Yeah, Lori, what do we, I call her Mayor Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
Um, anyway, she was the one that released the footage of Adam Toledo, the 13-year-old kid
Right.
who got shot by this cop. And if you've seen the footage, the way that footage is real. Like, unlike some of this other stuff, that footage is real because the cop freaks out. I mean, he really freaks out. You can tell he's distraught. He's trying to apply pressure. He's trying to save the kid's life. The kid pulled a gun on him. His nickname in the hood was called Little Felony. And these are teens. This is not unlike what happened in Brazil, where you had these 13, 14-year-old criminals coming out of the favelas, who were basically starting to run the favelas once they got to a certain age. What is it? City of Men or City of God?
Yeah. What was the name?
I think it's called City of God, isn't it?
Yeah, City of God, right?
City of God, which is it's an amazing movie,
Really amazing.
and it gives you an insight into how these favelas were developed and formed.
That's coming here.
It's coming here. This is exactly, we are being turned into a country of favelas.
Yep.
So Lightfoot, she releases this video a month after it happened,
Yeah.
and they're trying to stoke the fires. You know, this is we're very close now to 420, which of course is the commemoration of a number of different events. We have Waco, we have the Oklahoma City bombing, and the Boston Marathon, all taking place on 420. And this is like the season of Molech, right? This is where we have
Also the day of the massacre at the school in Colorado.
right. There we go. Yep.
I remember the name of that school for some reason, but anyway.
Yep. So we're in that zone now. What's today? The 18th? Is that where we are?
Yep.
Yeah. So we're right on the cusp of that, and it's no coincidence that that the Biden administration wants to bring in this guy David Chipman, and David Chipman. They want to make David Chipman what the new head of FEMA or something like that. I think it's FEMA.
Yep.
And David Chipman was the guy that was basically running the show down in Waco.
Yes, he was.
When it came to the Branch Davidians. And this guy is like, oh man, he's about as dark as it gets.
He's pretty much a psychopath.
So what's interesting though is that the word is getting out now in Chicago, and I was reading about this morning. Lori Lightfoot may have to resign because she apparently had an affair with a woman. And now I don't know who'd want to have an affair with Lori Lightfoot. That's a whole other discussion. So she had an affair with the woman, but the woman had a boyfriend. So the woman she had an affair with was, a switch hitter. And then the boyfriend found out, and then so there was some kind of gunplay involved. But the real action was when Lori Lightfoot's wife beat the hell out of her. And Lori Lightfoot's daughter, she has a daughter, came running out of the house, calling the cops, and said, "My moms are fighting. My moms are fighting." So this is starting to get out in Chicago now, that Lori Lightfoot was involved in this domestic abuse event, and she was caught sleeping around with, and then her daughter theoretically was endangered. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens over the course of the next 48 to 72 hours. Word on the street is that she's going to have to resign. So why is this important? It's important because there seems to be this kind of underlying kind of intelligence that wants to equalize the game in some ways, right? So if she's going to run her script and this other script, which is very clear that they want more top-down control, disempowerment, let's completely wipe out the 20th century, let's delete certain religions and certain cultures, that this script says, okay, well, let's make it interesting. Let's kind of level the playing field. So let's see what happens now, right? It's almost like the Matrix has this kind of course correction along the way. And I think we're going to see a lot more of this when Mercury goes retrograde in Gemini, and that's going to be in May. So we got a Mercury retrograde moment coming up here right at the end of May. It's going to be the 30th of May, and it goes retrograde at the 24th degree in Gemini. That's going to go, of course, for 3.5 weeks.
Oh wow!
And it doesn't go direct until the 23rd of June. Now, we do have the true node in Gemini, and it's been there for well over a year. The true node in Gemini, true node went into Gemini in early May of 2020. It was right after the NFL draft, late April, early May. And of course, what we've seen is just duality, 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 divergence, divergence, divergence. You're either in this camp or in this camp, this world or this world. Like there's no middle ground.
That's right.
And the true node in Gemini has been very, very illustrative of this. And then the south node, which is in Sagittarius, has everything to do with law. So there is no law, really. I mean, there is and there isn't. There's like two separate books of law.
Right.
There's laws for one group, and then there's laws for another group. There's lawlessness for one group, and then there's a rule against lawlessness for another group. So we see these two things happening simultaneously. I think with this Mercury retrograde in Gemini, we're going to see some script changes.
I agree.
And I think that we're going to be dealing with some revelatory moments, and that the quote unquote matrix will have more of this course correction.
I'm with you on that. I feel that in my, I can't articulate it very well, but I can feel it. I can feel that they've gone too far, that they've taken it too far, and now there's going to be this. Just as it was surprising that they went that far, it's just going to be that surprising, the kickback.
Absolutely.
And it's going to be circumstances, I think. I don't think it's going to be people saying something. I think it's just going to be suddenly a bunch of circumstances are going to occur that are going to backfire on them.
Right. Just like Lori Lightfoot, sleeping with her whomever and getting into a cat fight with her wife. It's like that's circumstances. Now, of course, Chicago has no shortage of sociopaths, so they could probably insert somebody who could be possibly even worse. But I think more of this is going to come up. Look at what happened with Patrice Cullers. Patrice Cullers, who's the head of BLM, or one of the titular heads of BLM, she gets outed for buying a cabin in the sky in the Topanga Canyon, her fourth home. And it's like, whoa, what's really going on here? And how do you justify your Marxist ideology when now you're becoming a really good capitalist? Of course, she tries to, but that's having an effect. These things are starting to have an effect, an cumulative effect. And I think what will happen is that there are people, even though, let's say 60% of the population just wants to buy in, right? There are going to be like key people or people that are on the fence who might be decision makers, or they might be communicators, and all of a sudden they're like, okay, listen, I've really got to rethink my relationship with this thing, because the evidence and the facts are lining up that if I don't do it, then I could really be at risk short-term and long-term. My name's dragged through the mud, blah, 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 blah. So I think you're going to see some of these people begin to either flip or, at the very least, be quiet and not chime in. And so that's not the only thing. Like the mother of Breonna Taylor, whatever happened there, and I have questions about that event, but the mother of Breonna Taylor is coming out against Black Lives Matter. It's like,
I saw that.
What's going on here? You guys are making all this money and none of it's come my way. And the same thing happened with, who was it? Michael Brown's father, from Missouri,
right?
And that whole thing. And it's like, same deal. So we're seeing some of the backlash around this stuff. And I think when Mercury goes retrograde, it's going to be even more pronounced. It's going to be much bigger, much bigger.
With all that money, there's got to be corruption. I mean, they've got $100 million donated to them by major corporations. So, I mean, that they're not putting anybody into college, as far as I know. They're not taking kids and helping them out, as far as I know.
No,
of course,
not at all.
Marxist, then I would never want.
Not at all. Yeah. So the other thing too is I'm looking at this transit of Mars, and Mars goes into Leo on the 12th of June. And the one period that I'm very concerned about with this Mars transit is the 4th of July. At that point, Mars is at 13 Leo, and it is in square with Saturn and in square with Uranus. That's a T-square, that's a hard T-square, that's a fixed T-square, and that is a very, in my estimation, a very intense period. Super intense period. Mercury will be direct at that time, but you're getting this kind of, this Leo energy, where Leo really represents sort of the oligarchy and the ruling class, and people who see themselves or position themselves as royalty, kings, queens. I mean, that's a time where you can see the royal family begin to take another sort of dive at that point, because they want to disassemble that. Right. They want to disassemble these so-called monarchies. It's all for show.
Yeah.
They did that during sort of the last reset at the beginning of the 20th century. It's like, okay, we're gonna take out the Habsburgs, we're gonna take out the Romanovs, we're gonna take these people out.
About.
Right. and then we're gonna redistribute and remake the maps. But it was really just for show. You know, they were still going to be the power behind the scenes, even though they had these nation states. Well, the same will be, it'll be the same here. Like they'll still be in power, but it'll be along the lines of like this sort of calendar marker. It's like, okay, we're done with this now. These people who were the symbols of the 20th century, they're going away. Well, they won't really go away. They'll just go away in terms of the eye of the public. There was a picture of Queen Elizabeth sitting alone at Prince Philip's wedding, or not wedding, I'm sorry, funeral. and it's like, oh, look at that. Poor woman. You know, she can't be with her family because no, it's a photo op. It's a very specific photo op.
Yep.
And was created to isolate her and to show the rest of the world that she's vulnerable, right? So that's coming. That is coming. Now, the other thing with this Mars T-square is that there are people who are supposedly, you know, not royal gentry, but they're like royalty in society, whether they're actors, keep your eye on actors, by the way,
yep.
Whether they're actors or whether they're, you know, people that are corporate oligarchs, they're in this mix too. And it's a period of time, I think, where, you know, there could be significant both unrest and overarching measures of control.
Right.
So this 4th of July period, I think, is really important to keep your eye on. The other thing with this Mars transit is by the end of July, it's going to hit the 28th and 29th degree of Leo. Why is this important? Well, that's the degree of Trump's ascendant. Trump also goes through his Mars return during that period. And I think that's when Trump re-enters the picture. And whether or not he's going to step back into the White House, whatever that's all about, I think is irrelevant. But you are going to see the reemergence of Donald Trump during that time. And that's going to be a really interesting X factor in play here. So the summer is going to be anything but boring. I can guarantee you that right now. We're looking at a possible redux of the George Floyd stuff with Derek Chauvin. It was 322 days from the day of when George Floyd supposedly had his neck crushed by Chauvin. 322 days after that was the Dante Wright event. 322. And then you have this doubling. All this doubling is going on now. So you have Dante Wright, whose teacher was supposedly George Floyd's girlfriend. Oh, really? Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
So you've got this doubling going on. And even that woman has a very bizarre kind of profile and past.
Yeah.
And then you had this guy in, I think was it Virginia? This army guy, this Nazario guy who got pulled over and he got maced or whatever.
Can I ask you, does that look staged to you?
Yes, it does look staged.
Yeah, it's like
it does look staged.
Yeah, totally staged.
Yeah, and he's supposedly the uncle of Eric Garner.
Right.
The first I Can't Breathe guy. So now they're talking about how trauma is intergenerational.
Right.
And what are they doing with this? Well, they're saying, well, just because, let's say, I don't know, Will Smith has been very successful, that doesn't mean that he hasn't experienced intergenerational trauma.
Right.
Especially when it comes to things like racism, and all the modern dialogue and hype that goes. So they're trying to create these new social conditions,
right,
by making these connections, right? So we're watching this sort of this social malady be created on the fly, so that they can redefine it. So what does that mean? Well, they're getting everything set up for reparations. That's what it's about. Because if somebody who's successful now, doesn't matter, somewhere in their history they've experienced trauma. It's intergenerational trauma. So therefore, they should be compensated for their trauma. They're making a case for this across the board with a lot of other consequences.
So do the Irish get reparations for all the crap that they had to put up with from the British?
Yeah, the answer to that would be no.
Oh, that's too bad. I was hoping I'd get a check.
I know. I've got a fair amount of Irish blood in
Yeah.
my DNA too. No, I don't think that's the case at all.
Yeah.
In fact, you're gonna pay for it.
Yeah.
You're gonna pay for the reparations.
Well, my German side of my family arrived here in 1852, and the Irish side arrived here in like 1858. All right. So I have no history of owning slaves or anything like that. None. They're just farmers who moved here. And so I don't know why we should have to pay for anything. We didn't do it.
Well, whether we did it or not, I think is irrelevant. I think what's I mean, we could go down the Tartarian rabbit hole here if we wanted to, and we could make a case that maybe history is a lot different than it's been translated to us and told to us, because the whole script and narrative of the Civil War looks very different under the sort of the illumination of the Tartarian paradigm, or the Tartarian alternative history. So what was the Civil War really about?
The destruction of the remnants of Tartaria that were left here in the country, or the taking over of them, as in San Francisco, and then then creating this false idea that Black Americans came from Africa, when there's ample. I have a book, Black Indians, a great book, a historical book. There's ample evidence that there were Black people living in this country before the Europeans came. Mm-hmm. There's drawings, Dutch artist in, I think, 1547 or something, draw two Native Americans, supposedly, hunting with bow and arrow near San Francisco, and they're Africans. They have African Americans. There's just no doubt about it, right? And they were there long before slavery began. So they aren't escaped slaves. They were here. And the Native Americans will tell you, the Paiute will tell you that, oh no, there were white people here, there were Black people here, there were brown people, Asian people, right? I mean, so we were already a polyglot.
There was a very diverse culture. All you got to do is look at the Cherokee, and you'll see at least 8 or 9 variations of what a Cherokee person is supposed to look like.
But it's not just the United States either. I mean, the kings of several African nations were white, and I'm talking before colonialization. They were white. There's pictures of Africans in Venice, paintings of them in 1600s, and not just one or two, but a lot. It's so the intermixing has been going on for a long time. We've been fed this false narrative that everybody in Africa was isolated in Africa, everybody in Asia was isolated in Asia, everybody in Europe was isolated, and everybody in America was isolated in there. And it's not true. So there's
not true.
Brian, the guy who does all the work in Peru, Brian Forrester, he's proven that the mummies there have red hair. They did the DNA. They're from the Middle East. They sailed there. It's all over the place. I mean,
they've got the record is clear in New Zealand that the fair-skinned, red-haired people actually predate the Maoris.
That's right.
They predate the Maoris.
Yeah. That's right. And when the missionaries first came to Hawaii to convert the Hawaiians, they were told that the reason that we accepted you guys right away was because when we first came here, you guys were already here. And they were told that there was these tall, red-headed, fair-skinned people, really tall, like 7 feet tall, and they're very peaceful, and they all got along, and eventually they got outbred by the natives who came from Asia. And it may very well be that Polynesians are combining of these people and Asians. That
Mhm.
may be what Polynesians are, you know, because they're big and, you know, they're
They
like
are
this.
big. I mean, the Samoans and the Tongans are very large people.
Yeah.
The other interesting thing about the Hawaiians is that if you look at some of those pictures, and these are very early pictures, they're wearing suits.
Yeah.
They're not wearing like,
No.
little skirts and stuff around their and coconut shells around their boobies. These guys were well dressed.
Yes.
And it's like, what's that all about? Did all of a sudden the English decide to tailor them? I don't think so.
No, no, it's clearly obvious that there was a very sophisticated culture. They're hiding it. And this idea does not go down well with a lot of people, by the way. We'll get a lot of crap for saying all of this, but I'm sorry. I decided to, go down the rabbit hole after I read Howdy Mikowski's books on the World Fair, and I haven't looked back. And I've seen things that that I can't explain. I saw Autodidactic. He did photographs from California in the late 1800s, and there's a dilapidated Gothic cathedral in the middle of the desert
Mm-hmm.
in 1870. Well, it takes
Mm-hmm.
200 years for a cathedral to fall apart. It takes 200 years to build a cathedral. Where did this building come from, right? And it looks like it got bombed, by the way, which I'm beginning to wonder now if a lot of the fires that happened in the early 1900s weren't coming from the air, you might say, intentional, like the Chicago fire and San Francisco fire and a lot of the other.
The whole story with the woman and her cow is just ridiculous.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, even the pictures of like San Francisco after the earthquake fire are really odd because the fire is burning down stone buildings. Which
Looks
is
like Dresden. It looks like Dresden.
Yeah, it looks like Dresden. It does.
Yep.
It looks like it got bombed. It
Yep.
really does.
And John Levi's talked about this. A number of other people have talked about this. You can see where the tops of these buildings almost look like they're melted, and they just come right down. No hard angles, just rounded off edges and stuff like that. Yep.
And it doesn't have to be intentional. We know now that with the electric universe model that we could be actually getting hit by just naturally occurring gigantic lightning strikes, which are come, and we don't know what they are. We have no model for it, so we don't know how to explain it. But we know from the electric universe that the American Southwest was carved out by lightning. I mean, there's no doubt. They've done experiments where they put a piece of flagstone down and then they hit it with lightning strikes, and pretty soon mesas begin forming, and all the odd formations that you see in Arizona and Utah and New Mexico, the arching, like at Arches National Park, all that stuff is a direct result of gigantic lightning strikes. And to make things worse, if this model is true, and I'm now really believing it, we can't believe the archaeological evidence anymore because the lightning strikes would change the deposit layers of bones and things. So actually a bone that you are carbon dating it, 75 million years ago could actually only be, 75,000 years ago. We don't know anymore. And so that calls into question the whole thing of our dating system. Everything is called into question with this. And my God, you cannot get a geologist to look at this. No matter how many times I try, I can't get a geologist to just give a look at the experiments themselves and see that we have been literally formed. The whole landscape of our planet has been formed by electricity. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's a really interesting convergence where we're going through, you and I've talked about this before, but we're going through a reset. Like this is the Great Reset.
Yes, it is.
And
maybe
as we ramped up to the social acceleration of this thing, all the Tartaria material was coming out prior to this.
Yeah.
So we now have an opportunity to look back and see this has happened before. And there have been many resets in the 20th century already. I mean, we've seen that.
Yeah.
from the Great Dust Bowl and the migration of people to the coasts and
Post-war.
the depression and all these things have contributed to these mini resets along the way.
That's right.
But now I would posit that this might be the first time, maybe historically, that a large number of people are conscious and aware of this happening again, or it happened before at a global level.
I would agree with you. I think this is the first time that there's been a worldwide consciousness awareness of that the reset is going on. My dad went through 2 resets, the Depression and post-war America. I don't think he ever knew that he even had a foggy idea that he was going through some kind of reset. But we do. And furthermore, the Tartarian stuff is coming out, and we're actually able to look back and realize, that the stage masters have been doing this for a long, long time, and it's almost jaw-dropping. In fact, it almost can't be human, to be honest with you.
Right, exactly. And you and I have talked about this before, that there are a small group of people who I think have been here for a very long time.
Yep.
And they continue to be like, how old really was Prince Philip? Was he really like 90? Right? That guy could have been 900.
Well, what the elite do is different than what, so there's 2 kinds of alchemy. There's your dark alchemy and there's your light alchemy. And the dark alchemy it's really well put in the book, The Red Lion. It's a novel where when they get really, really old, they transfer their soul into the body of a young, usually a woman. If you go in like Nantes Cathedral in France, there's a statue of an old man, and on the other side is a young maiden, and nobody understands it, right? That's that dark alchemy that they're doing. And then the light alchemy, of course, is doing it naturally, going back into the bardo and spending your time regurgitating what happened to you and then slowly coming back or maybe advancing on. But what the dark alchemists are doing, what Prince Philip probably did, is he's putting off that thing that happens when you die, the life review. He's putting that one off. And you can't do that for very long. Once you sacrifice 6 or 7 life reviews, you become really psychologically damaged. And there's a great book. Actually, Norman Mailer also talks about this in his book, Ancient Evenings, about ancient Egypt, and that's how they did it. But you can see that that's why it has this continuing intelligence. It doesn't go through the forgetting part, which is actually necessary, by the way, because if you don't go through the forgetting part of your past life, you remember all that trauma. And so you don't want that. So that's why the universe is like kind of cleans the slate for you in between lives, so that you can come here. You still actually have that intrinsic memory in you, but it doesn't become the guiding force. But not so with the elites. With the elites, they keep their memories. They actually get to come back into a 21-year-old and keep their memories and everything. And so they become spiritually crazed after a while. And that's what we're going through right now. And it's actually illegal. And so the Great War that happened in around 1750 in the occult world was a war between the rediscovery through Egypt, the rediscovery of this dark alchemy, and the light alchemists going, no, don't do that, right? And they said, no, we're going to do it. And they said, well, then we're out of here. And so they scrammed, and they've been gone ever since. And the only way that this group, which is really like they're not bad people, the light alchemists, but they're afraid of these guys, really afraid of them. And these guys are really afraid of these guys, and they're looking for them. They're searching everywhere for them. That's why the OSS was searching for Fulcanelli at the end of World War II. They wanted to find him. Why would an intelligence agency want to find a guy who's just writing about alchemy? Because he was saying in his book that he was part of that group that's hiding. And the Harry Potter stuff is also about that. because she had read, J.K. Rowling had read all of the Fulcanelli material and knew that somewhere in the Pyrenees, just as Fulcanelli said, there's a castle where they're still practicing all of this stuff, right? And they can't be found. That's the big thing. They can't be found. And so that's what they're doing. That's what Prince Philip is doing. He's transferred his soul to another person, and sacrificed a person for it. And now that evil piece of crap is still here with us, I think.
Maybe he's in Meghan Markle now.
That would be nice. I don't even want to think about it. Yeah, she's a real work of art. Yeah.
So there's another movie that I think touches on these characters. It's actually a really underrated movie. It's John Carter of Mars. And
actually,
these characters, the ones you're talking about, show up in that film in that way. And it's exactly how you just portrayed them.
I personally think that's why Disney destroyed that film.
Oh, I do too.
So why would you have a film that's called John Carter of Mars and then change it to John Carter? And take
exactly.
Mars. I mean, you talk about killing your project. Who wants to go see a movie about a guy named John Carter? But John Carter from Mars, no, that's a different story, right? So they killed their thing from the beginning. And you're right. The Archons are in that movie. They all are in that movie, actually, if you watch it really closely.
And what's interesting is I've seen some kind of mainstream justifications or reasons why they killed that movie. And one of them was because Disney invested in the Marvel universe, right? And they wanted all these different Marvel comics and Marvel characters. John Carter was a comic book in Marvel Comics. Like, that's the one thing that they don't make the connection with. Right. John Carter was already part of the Marvel universe. Now, he didn't have any crossover with the Avengers or these other characters. It was like sword and sorcery stuff. Conan the Barbarian, another Marvel comic. So yeah, that's not really a great justification.
No, because you could build it. There's so many of the books, the Edgar Rice Burroughs books, that you have a universe at hand already. Yep. So they and the whole now model in Hollywood is, of course, you have to create a universe, right? And then that's kind of what I did at Gaia. I created a Gaia universe, which they're now going and deviating away from. But that's what we really had at Gaia too, was a universe. You were part of it, and I was part of it, and all these people in the alternative community were part of it. And so why would they not want to use the Edgar Rice Burroughs universe? I mean, it's this huge universe, and the answer is they killed it because the writer-director just told us a little bit too much about what was going on in this world.
Yeah. I also think it's kind of interesting that John Carter has the same initials as Jesus Christ.
Oh, yeah.
JC.
Sure, not by accident.
Yeah, not by accident. It's like, what is Edgar Rice Burroughs really talking about here? What is he really saying here? Yep.
It's like in Day the Earth Stood Still. His name is John Carpenter, and Jesus was a carpenter, and he dies and is resurrected. And he has his Mary, who's what's her name, Patricia O'Neill. Yeah. He's got his Judas, who is her boyfriend. I can't remember his name now, Hollywood hack actor. But yeah, a lot of these great movies are actually telling you religious mythos, in science fiction and horror, actually, too.
Real quick, I'm curious. What is your take on Keanu Reeves?
He is in, if I had top 10 movies of all time, he's in 3, maybe 4 of them, which is very odd. He's in The Matrix, which is one of my favorite films. And he's in, believe it or not, I really like Bram Stoker's Dracula by Francis Ford Coppola. And then there's another one. Which one is it? It's strange. He has
he's in Bill and Ted. He's in Bill and Ted.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm good friends with the producer of that movie. And he's the guy that discovered Keanu. I like him, frankly, although I thought his Knock Knock movie on Netflix sucked. But I like him for the most part, and I think he has really good taste in what he chooses.
So one of the interesting things about him is that I think he was born, 64, right around there? He is not aged. If you look at Keanu Reeves, he
I
really hasn't.
agree. I was shocked when I found out that he was only, he was actually closer to my age than I thought, right? I was like, whoa, what's he doing? And
Yeah,
what is he doing? I don't know.
yeah.
Because
And he always has these roles of being almost a Christ-like figure in a lot of these roles.
well,
Whether
he's
it's
the, do you know what a Sigma male is?
yeah,
He's the ultimate Sigma male.
he is.
Every movie, he's the Sigma male. He's alpha and he knows it, but he doesn't need to show it. He doesn't need to act it out. He doesn't even care that he's an alpha.
Mhm.
He is the ultimate Sigma male for sure.
Yeah. When you look into his background, it's very unusual. Like, he was born, I think, in Lebanon, if I'm not mistaken. Lebanon, or yeah, I think he was born in Beirut. It's
Really?
like, oh yeah, well, what's going on there? And then his father, his supposed father, has been in jail in Hawaii for a really long time. He's got that kind of crossover with Woody Harrelson, Woody Harrelson's dad, Charles. But Charles Harrelson's dad was notorious here in Texas.
Oh yeah.
And whereas Keanu Reeves' father has been under wraps in this prison in Hawaii, so he's got some very strange connections in his past. Like he was born in the Fertile Crescent, right? I mean,
Yeah.
think about that. Yeah,
That's very interesting.
yeah,
Yeah, I really like him. I know the new Matrix is coming out. I didn't really care for the follow-up Matrix films, but the first one was killer for sure.
yep, really good. Yeah. Mhm.
So what can we expect? Just more of the same, right? Duality everywhere.
Yeah, but there's going to be a lot of duality. But if you pay attention, you're going to see kind of the if it was like if you were watching a play,
Yep.
right, you would see the edges of the stage, you would see the proscenium, you would see the props
The
in
camera.
play. Yeah, you would see things and it would be revealed. We'll see a lot of that stuff,
That's what I
and
think.
I think a lot of it is going to come. Again, I'm just going to go back and we'll see what happens in the next 48 hours with this Lori Lightfoot thing. And they may, really, run a fire drill here to scramble this thing. But I feel like we're going to see more and more of this stuff where things are going to come out. Like when Biden was talking about Nazis and he used the word, a fag instead of flag, right? You saw that, didn't you? I mean, it's kind of laughable in some
Did you
ways.
see it when he said the N word?
Yes, I did.
It was hilarious.
I did. I
Yeah.
did. So we're going to see more of this stuff, but at the same time, we're also going to be dealing with more of this onslaught and this ramp up. I do think people who are involved in, cryptocurrencies really need to keep their eye on this Mercury retrograde coming up. And that if you have made some significant gains in the crypto world, you may want to think about what you're going to do with them. And the reason why it looks like the cryptos are going in the tank is because the Treasury is now moving in on the crypto market, and ultimately they want to get rid of the dollar. We know that they want to get rid of the dollar, and they want to have a centralized digital trackable electronic currency. The yuan is already digital in China,
Sure.
and they've been working on a digital currency in India for a long time now.
I'm pretty sure that the guy that the invention of Bitcoin was by the intelligence agencies. And
Yeah,
it's a relief valve. They knew that this reset was coming, so they created a relief valve so that as everything is crumbling apart, you have this little thing that gives you hope. But will it give you hope? I don't know. I mean, I bought it early on, and I'm very happy with it and everything, but I don't trust it. And I know the governments are going to outlaw it. They're already starting. Turkey just outlawed it. And so, the thing is they can't afford to have this kind of competition to their local currencies. So what's going to happen is that they're either going to outlaw it, which is actually going to make it more valuable, by the way, or they're just going to collapse all the world's economies at the same time and replace it instantly overnight with digital, and then transfer all the digital funds over into the new one. And that's what's going to happen. I guarantee it.
yeah, I think that that's probably the case, and if that is the case, I think we could see the internet go down
Yep.
for a period of time. And when the internet comes back on, that will be the onset of the reset. But that's it, right? You know, everything. And if you want to get back on the internet, you're going to have to jump through a bunch of hoops.
Yep.
You have to get a Q code, digital scan of your iris, whatever. So, is this going to happen? Well, the odds are pretty,
Probably.
I think, pretty good that it'll happen.
Yep.
That said, I think we're still dealing with X factors and wild cards.
I agree.
The game being revealed, and keep your eye on the reemergence of Trump, and that's gonna start to take place towards the end of July when he has his Mars return, and I'm not saying he's going to go back into the White House, but you're going to see and feel a lot more of Donald Trump, whoever that guy is, during that period of time.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, especially the Mercury retrograde coming up. That's going to be something to watch. Get your popcorn out because that's going to get really interesting. I'm looking for a series of screw ups that are going to reveal a whole lot of truths. That's what I'm thinking, because they're making too many mistakes. And by the way, the media is falling apart, and it will be gone soon. There's no reason why anyone would want to watch the media when there's shows like this on. Right. And so when you listen to two people, talking free form without any interruption or ads, why the hell would you want to watch, anything on TV except maybe Tucker? There's nothing interesting on there. So,
well, the legacy systems are all going to go away.
Yeah.
I mean, this is, and across the board. I mean, again, we're at this really interesting juncture of, it's going to happen. Like, it's going to happen. It's just about who's going to control the narrative, and how is the technology and how are these organizing principles going to manifest? Because
it's already done. That's what I think. I think it's already done. I think that they're in contact with all sorts of different things and species now. They know what they're about to do on us. They are not going. It's not going to be wholesale slaughter. I don't believe that. A lot of people are going to die, and they already are. I have a lot of friends that have died over the last year, but I thought you had died. That's why I got in contact with you. I heard from you, and you got kicked off your station there. I didn't know what was going on. So I would look for a lot of weirdness. I think that the nature of the ads that are on TV for the last year is indicating to me that they're about to do a massive integration of everybody into one polyglot. I think that's where we're headed here. And they're getting it into our heads with these ads and things that this is the future. So I don't think there's any way escaping it. It may even be the extraterrestrial forces are dictating this. It very well could be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of interesting that on the one hand, the commercials are portraying, hey, let's hook up, let's miscegenate. And on the other hand, what's going on in terms of critical race theory is the complete opposite.
I know.
Right? It's just like, it's such a, mind fuck.
It
in
is.
a lot of ways.
And, you can't simultaneously paint your country as the most racist country on earth and then go around criticizing other countries. And it's just like, you don't have a leg to stand on anymore. So, right. Either you're a racist country and you can't criticize anybody, or you're not. And, we've reached that level now. And I don't know. I've seen things in the past few weeks that make me think that we're not going to be able to cross that Rubicon. I just don't know. Anyway, Robert, it's really good having you on again. You always bring a lot to the table and a lot to think about.
Yeah, Jay, as always, it's been great. And if people are looking for my daily stream, you can find me at 15 Minutes of Flame, and that's OV, 15minutesoflame.com. And I stream every day from 9 a.m. Central Standard Time from my website till about 10:20, maybe 10:15, depending on what I have to do that day. And then on Friday, I stream from that site and I do the Friday Forecast where I do interviews with people. And tonight, until further notice, I'll be streaming my astrology show, Sunday Night Astro Live, from the same website. And I do have a new YouTube channel for my astrology stuff, and it's called 11th House Media. So I needed to branch off, and I'm trying to get some subscribers to that channel. I've got 811 or 815. So if you're watching this and you would like to subscribe, once I hit that magic 1,000 number, I can stream on YouTube. And usually the astrology stuff doesn't get tagged or flagged. Like my astrology channel is still up, but I can't access it because it was connected to my other channel on the same account that got nuked. So I just need about another 200 subscribers, and then we can stream live again on YouTube, which I don't have a problem with. But you can find me on 15minutesoflame.com.
There you go, folks. Help him out. He needs help. You can give it to him. You've helped me out, and I really appreciate you guys watching. Thanks, Robert. Really appreciate it. I really, really do. Your updates are always really great. Thank you, everybody, for watching. I really, really do appreciate you watching. And this is Reality Check. I'm Jay Weidner, and see you next time.